Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the Rustic Von Lodge and the video everybody's been waiting for, the conclusion of the Avengers Forever read-along. I know you've been waiting with bated breath all week for this one. Well, here it is, the conclusion of my Avengers Forever read-along, which I'm reading along with Steve Donoghue on his channel and Matthew at Mayberry Bookclub on his channel. Now, first of all, you'll have to excuse me because I've been drinking, which I don't normally do, but I had some wine, and so I drank that, and now I'm drunk. So, this is going to be a drunken comic book video. Man, you're in for a treat. So, Avengers Forever read-along. Yes, it's the Avengers Forever. We're talking about issues 10, 11, 12, and my concluding thoughts on this miniseries, which came out in the late 90s. And I've had this trade paperback since 20 years ago or something. I've had this a long time. I read it once, and I actually read it before I read a lot of the Avengers stories that it's referencing. And so it was actually interesting, I should mention, it was actually interesting as I've read Avengers stories throughout the years. Whenever I would come up on a story that was talked about in this miniseries, it was like, oh wow, I know what's really going on with this moment because I read this, which added a dimension to my reading that I wouldn't otherwise have. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there drunkenly. Okay, so what happened in the last 3 issues of this miniseries? Fighting. Lots of fighting happened. There were fights. Lots of fights happened. The timekeepers, the evil timekeepers, well, they're not really evil, but they're kind of jerks. So timekeepers have hired Immortus to look after the time stream, okay? And there's one time stream where Rick Jones, permanent teenage sidekick Rick Jones, that's his profession. He's a professional teenage sidekick to superheroes. He gets older and uses this superpower that he suddenly develops and becomes evil or something, or he causes lots of trouble. So the timekeepers want him killed. He uses his superpowers to pluck a bunch of Avengers from different times to come and help him and protect time itself from the machinations of the timekeepers, because the timekeepers, as is demonstrated in this concluding portion of the story, are really just out to protect themselves. They don't give a rat's ass about everybody else. They're just out for number one, themselves. Which is not surprising. So, in the concluding volume of this, or the concluding 3 issues, I should say, a couple important things happen. So, this is when the Destiny War happens. We also get an explanation about why these particular Avengers were chosen for this mission. Now remember, we've got Yellow Jacket, who's like a crazy Dr. Pym. We've got the regular Dr. Pym Giant Man. We've got Captain America, but plucked from a time during the Watergate era where he was all disillusioned because the president was a Skrull. Only I don't think he knew that. He didn't know that. But, you know, of course Nixon was a Skrull. I think everybody pretty much knows that now. But at the time, it was not commonly known. Anyway, yeah, so it had all these weird Avengers, and this offers explanations for why these particular Avengers were chosen, and none of the explanations were really all that great. Really, they were chosen because Kurt Busiek and Roger Stern just wanted to use these particular Avengers. And Carlos Pacheco did an amazing job doing the artwork in this issue. Here's a scene where Immortus is killed by the timekeepers because he, wasn't the murdering maniac they want him to be. So the timekeepers pluck all the evil Avengers out of the time stream, and then the good Avengers were plucked out of the time stream, and everybody fights. and the good guys win. Damn, that was a great conclusion. I'm glad I was able to wrap all that up for you. So, concluding thoughts. There was a cool scene where there were some cool scenes in this. Kang the Conqueror, that was the name I temporarily forgot. Kang the Conqueror, he didn't want to become Immortus, his future self, because he thought that Immortus was just a pencil-pushing loser, and he didn't want to become that in the future. And so he fights against that. And he actually conquers, as Kane should, and he manages it so that he will not become Immortus in the future. And yet, due to a strange paradox, Immortus survives. You know, this stuff works out in the comics. It all makes sense when you read it. I swear. So, yeah. So, concluding thoughts on this series. This is, you know, 3 of us are making a video on this last portion, and this video is the best. It's the best one, obviously. Of course it is. So anyway, my concluding thoughts on this. I thought this was an excellent miniseries. I'm glad I was brought along to join up with this read-along and do the bad versions of these videos, because this was a lot of fun to read. My thinking on this series is a lot of fun. It's very complicated. At times, I kind of feel like it was needlessly complicated, but for a purpose. Marvel Comics continuity has never been as confusing as DC Comics continuity, but it does have its share of things that don't make sense, you know, stuff that don't really work, stuff like that, you know. And so this series was able to take a bunch of that stuff, those conflicting storylines, and make a certain amount of sense of them. So a lot of stuff that didn't work in Avengers continuity, if you were paying attention, suddenly did work. There's a lot of retconning going on, but to a purpose. That worked, I think, with this series. So this series, although overburdened with exposition, it was to a purpose. And if you're a fan of the Avengers, all that was good. And it was entertainingly done. The writing of this was good. It was well written. I don't think this series would have worked, though, if it had not been the artwork by Pacheco. Because this series was big. It was huge. It was a huge series. And it relies heavily on these massive battle scenes. I'll see if I can pull a couple up. Yeah, it relies heavily on these massive, intricate, detailed battle scenes. And you needed an artist of Pacheco's caliber to pull that off. And not only that, but to get all of the specific details in the story. And even add some details to it. We have a scene where we get a future Rick Jones. That is future Rick Jones. And if you look closely, you'll notice that he's wrapped with Superman's cape, and he has Batman's utility belt. How did he get these things? I don't even want to ask. But those little details are in there all throughout this series. So this is the type of thing that you can read it and you just pay attention to the artwork, and you get all of this richness from the art. And I really don't think that this story would have worked if it hadn't been for the artwork. Not that it was bad, because it was good. But all those long expositional scenes, all that stuff that you wouldn't understand if you were a diehard Avengers fan, all that stuff works because the artwork was absolutely beautiful. Really well done. From beginning to the end. You know, I recently did a video on Secret Wars, and in that I talk about how the artwork was terribly inconsistent, how it was decent in the beginning of the series and just completely fell apart. Pacheco never allows that to happen. He is in complete control from beginning to end of this series. It was that good. I actually didn't read it. Secrets here. I'm letting out secrets because I'm drunk. Secrets here. I didn't actually read this trade paperback. I read it on this thing, my tablet, because you can zoom in on the artwork and you get a really good, clean view of all the art. These things are good for comic books. I'm reading a comic book right now. I'm actually reading a comic book for Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. So this is a spoiler alert for Epic Comic Book Wednesday, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. Can you recognize this comic? One of the cool things about this is you can move right into a close-up view of all the panels. You know? So you just zoom right along. Or you can just go back to the regular page. It's awesome. I love reading comics digitally just because of that. You get a great view of the artwork. Also, that makes me think, I do have a video that is going to be a response video to Steve Donoghue's latest live stream about e-reading and e-books. Because my feeling is, you know, you've seen my videos if you've seen them. I don't know why you would, but if you have seen my videos, you would have seen that I have an ass load of books. That's an actual amount, an ass load. I have several ass loads probably of books. I've got a ton, man. I have a lot of books. I don't need any of them though, probably, because if you have these things, if you've got a tablet, a full-size tablet for your comics, and an e-reader, which I'm holding upside down, you really don't need any of that stuff. But I love books, so I have them. Anyway, I'm off topic because I'm drunk. But here you go, Avengers Forever. This dumpster fire of a conclusion of my Avengers Forever read-along. I hope you enjoyed it. Whoever of you are left watching this video, I appreciate it. And I thank Steve Donoghue and Matthew at Mayberry Bookclub for inviting me along. I bet they both are regretting it now, but I had a good time, so I don't regret it. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.